So last week, in our Torah portion, we read a verse that states, it was in the middle of the curses. It said, "Because you would not serve the Lord your God in joy and gladness, over the abundance of everything, you shall have to serve in hunger and thirst, naked and lacking everything, the enemies whom the Lord will let loose against you." And I mentioned last week, and I've mentioned in the past, I mentioned it to the young lady who was becoming bat mitzvah, that the command is very clear, right? That we are to serve the Lord our God with joy and gladness. In fact, as you know, one of the 6 pillars of Shomrei Torah Synagogue is just that, l'sason u'lesimcha, because we are a people who love the Spirit, who love joy. In fact, as you know, there are many ways in which we can serve God and find God. And Chassidut, the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Chassidut, was the one who said it's through laughter, it's through song, it's through dance, it's through eating, it's through walking, it's through the simplest pleasures in life that we find the Spirit of God. And yet we also know, right, from the Bible, the psalmist says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." We know the psalm who says, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." We know the psalmist who says, "You are my hiding place. You will protect me from trouble and surround me with songs of deliverance." We know the psalmist who says, "Turn your ear to me, come quickly to my rescue. Be my rock of refuge, a strong fortress to save me." We know that just as much as the Torah says that we should experience the joys of life, sometimes it's not so easy to experience the joys of life. We were struck a number of weeks ago when our friend Robin Williams took his life by suicide. And we were shocked to see that in the age group 65 to 46, the percentage of suicide rose 40% from 1999 to 2011. We think about young people who commit suicide, and we think about the elderly, but we don't think about those who are the baby boomers. And that's the highest risk these days. And what did Robin Williams kill himself over, as we know? Depression, sadness. Because despite the fact that the Torah teaches us that we must worship God with joy and gladness, sometimes it's very difficult to do so. And so in our community, to put a face on this terrible, terrible illness, this terrible disease, depression, I invite Maxine Schwartz, who we all know and love, not only from the cheeriness of her voice when she served in our community, in the office, but the smile that is always in front and accompanies her wherever she goes, to share with us some personal words.
Thank you, Rabbi. Before I get started today, it's so great to see Barbara Rubin back in the house, although I don't think we've ever heard her voice quite that quiet. I thought about this, Josh, for about 2 years, and yesterday I was actually quite nervous about doing it, and I looked to my friend Kay Israel, and she goes, "Are you nervous?" I said, "Yeah, I am." And she said to me, "Well, did somebody, ask you to do this? Did somebody put you up to it?" And I said, "No." And then she said, "Well, what made you think this was going to be such a good idea?" No. So thank you, Kay. There are a few people that I'm going to mention that helped me stand before you today. My terrific parents, my sister Randy, daughters Shayna and Carly, and my understanding husband of 33 years, who's in the building today, my husband Rick. One more person I must mention, our very own Jack Israel, who taught us all to never stop learning. I like what Rabbi Feldman writes in preparation for Elul. Somehow the connections to the new life become very powerful. At the end of the trail, the rewards are enormous. a sense of having returned home and being part of our majestic tradition, a sense of the grandeur and beauty and warmth of all of it, the awareness of God's presence in one's daily life, the feeling of meaning and purpose that permeates oneself. Life becomes coherent and whole again. What's in a question? Remember that. Most of you know me. Maybe I helped you during my time working in the STS office. I've been before you, privileged to read Torah from this very pulpit more than once. I've served on various committees and, of course, attended many a delicious Shabbat dinner here. Concurrently, I'm honored to be a brand new board member serving on the Ritual Committee. I would think that you would see a woman in a successful marriage, 2 great daughters, friends in many cities around the country. Additionally, I've enjoyed many careers that were productive and made me feel jubilant while in them. Oh, and I almost forgot, part of many Mahjong groups. Prior to me becoming a congregant at STS, I had a vibrant career in advertising spanning over a decade. I was a media buyer, responsible for millions of my clients' dollars, accountable to the penny. I had an office with a view, my own assistant, and a staff that reported to me. I traveled frequently for business, dined in the finest restaurants, garnering the hottest theater and concert tickets in town. Trips, you guessed it, I was invited to all expense-paid excursions to many great destinations. I was having a blast. Life was good. What you may not know about me is that I have suffered several bouts with depression. Yes, I said it out loud, that all too often whispered word, depression. My diagnosis, major depressive disorder. Sounds bad, right? It certainly is. People unfamiliar with this debilitating disorder ask, what does it feel like? Words fall hollow to describe it, but I'll try. Depression is so insidious that it commanded my body and my mind. Depression left me unable to do seemingly easy functions, daily functions, like get out of bed, take a shower, get something to eat, and answer a phone. Me? It erased the smile from my face, and it silenced my laugh. During this time, interacting with people was nearly impossible for me. Concurrently, my body was racked with depression's evil twin sister, anxiety. I endured uncontrollable burning and shaking throughout my limbs. If I were lucky enough to fall asleep, soon thereafter, the anxiety would wake me. Most times, I felt that deeply scary feeling of being lost in a bad neighborhood, unable to return home. This overwhelming terror was with me 24 hours a day, with no apparent way out. Depression left me unable to work, take care of my 2 children, my home, and my husband. My learning curve regarding depression started right here. Depression, left untreated, gets worse, getting longer to get out of what seems like a dark well, a deep dark well fallen into. I must impress, the right doctors can really help. If you're fortunate to find somebody who can properly diagnose you and prescribe the medication to aid in your healing, it's a start. A start? What? In this day and age, meds are not the magic bullet? The short answer is no. Depressive disorder is very complex. It requires much more than pharmaceuticals to get relief. My recovery recipe included medication, exercise, a good diet, eventually returning to work, and most important of all, surrounding myself with loving, supportive people who, to the best of their ability, understood what I was going through. I learned to eliminate some people from my daily life that might judge my illness. Those who judge are a detriment to recovery. Here's a story that exemplifies the point. I had a long-standing friend who knew I just wasn't myself. She invited me to have breakfast at a lovely eatery in Beverly Hills. First thought was, how am I going to do this? It seemed like a gargantuan task. However, I managed that morning to get dressed and get to the restaurant. I ordered only toast, hoping I could get that down. My girlfriend listened to my story, or at least I thought she did. She processed what I had told her and came up with a remedy. Head immediately to 14 Carat, a lovely jewelry store on Beverly Drive, and buy the trendiest earrings. Yes, she proclaimed, that will do it. I gazed at my untouched breakfast, and I knew she didn't get it. Purchase earrings? If it were only that simple, jewelry would be an even more precious and valued commodity than we deem it to be today. Where does that leave the diagnosis of depressive disorders, and who is at risk? Major depressive disorders is one of the most common disorders in the United States, affecting about 14 million adults. Women are 70% more likely than men to experience depression in their lifetime. As Rabbi Kamras was saying earlier, the average age of onset is 32 years old. Make no mistake, our younger generation is not immune. 3.3% of 13 to 18-year-olds have experienced a seriously debilitating depressive disorder. Look around the room. We're a community that is so supportive when a member is stricken with cancer, suffers a heart attack, or sustains an injury from falling off a bicycle. Al Alfaso, you here? Stay up. Our rabbi is called to check on you. Stacy Stark and her amazing crew will have briskets delivered as long as you need them. Have dietary restrictions? No problem for this community. How do we know this will happen? How do we know this will happen? The dedicated people of this committee and the broader community have asked questions. Now familiar with the answers because the aforementioned afflictions are acceptable to understand and discuss. All of our help is needed in bringing the diagnosis of depression out of the shadows. The stigma of depression and the medications that need to be taken for, if not long periods of time, possibly a lifetime exists. We all know people who take medications for the rest of their lives. Prescription medications for blood pressure, heart conditions, and cholesterol are available so people lead a longer and better quality of life. Any stigmas related to those medications or to treat them? I can't think of any. I'm sure that most of you know many people that have been touched by this torturous disorder. Maybe in the past you've shied away from them. After all, it's easier to do. However, as a kehillah, it is our responsibility to care for each other. Being attentive to changes in people's mood, attitude, appearance, or just disappearance from their usual routine is a start. Haven't seen someone in a while? Reach out. Give them a call. Ask questions and listen. Listen to the answers and see what's up with them. After all, I ask you, what's in a question? Shabbat Shalom.